Welcome to another episode of the Living Large in a Small House podcast. Today I have a guest with me who I've known for some time, but I haven't talked to her in quite a while. Welcome, Chelsea Kolich.
Hey, Lynn, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I'm so excited to chat with you because I know a little bit about what's going on in your life from social media. I mean, that's kind of our communication since you've moved, but I haven't talked to you in, gosh, years, I don't think.
It's been a long time for sure.
Okay, can you share a little bit about yourself and where you live?
Yes, I'm originally from the Midwest. That's where we met in the Chicago. Can I start that over?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I am originally from the Midwest. That's where we met in the Chicago suburbs. And about 4.5 years ago now, we moved down to East Tennessee, and formally I should say Northeast Tennessee because we are so tucked up in the corner. And I have 3 children, 11, 7, and 3, 2 boys and a girl. I homeschool them. We live on a beautiful hilltop in kind of your quintessential Tennessee cabin that people would want if they were moving here. And I have a couple gardens, chickens and ducks like I've always had. And we just try to keep it a simple little life here. I'm 38 years old, been married to my husband for 12 years, and we really like it here. It took some time to adjust, but I really do. We really are enjoying it down here.
Yeah, I can tell that. I mean, it seems like the perfect situation for you. It just suits you, who you are.
Oh,
and
thank
your
you.
family. Yeah. So let's talk about how we met. I actually met you through your mom, Joy, who's at Savvy City Farmer, and she sells English advertising wear, mostly on Instagram, I would say, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And her and I met through Instagram because we lived close to each other. And since then, she's moved away to Wisconsin, and I don't have much communication with her at all. How's she doing?
She's doing really, really well. They love their little house. Maybe it's just the disconnect that I've had from living down here, but even watching her have to say goodbye, to the house in Dundee wasn't too hard, even though it was beautiful. And I guess I could say that's sort of where I grew up, but she's doing really well. They bought this adorable ranch in a sweet little Wisconsin town on the lake, and they are, to put it lightly, they're just living it up. They go to the lake and watch the sunrise. They watch the sunset. They're making friends. Like you said, this really suits me. I'm watching my parents thinking, oh my goodness, this suits you. This is incredible. They're doing good. Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's great to hear. Yeah, I thought it would be hard to leave that house. That little house of theirs, was like an old Victorian farmhouse. I think that's the best way to describe it. And your mother's style is impeccable. And she had that house was so cute. So I had been to her house several times. She'd been to my house a few times. And one time when I was at her house, she always had a candle on, first of all, but she always smelled really, really lovely.
Yeah.
And I just asked her. Well, she also had that day, she had on some doTERRA oils.
Okay.
And I believe it was Motivate.
Yes.
And I just fell in love with it. And so I'm like, well, where do you get this? Well, she opened up a drawer full of oils, and she told me about you, that you sold doTERRA. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yes.
And gave me your number, and we connected, and I started buying oils from you, which I love because I really have tried to cut fragrance out of all the products that I use. Just because we all know how icky this stuff is, that they put in so many things.
Absolutely.
And so I enjoy using them very much. And are you still selling oils?
It got really big when 2020 hit for all the obvious reasons, and then kind of dwindled off, and I started getting just busier with the kids and kind of feeling a disconnect from some of my girls up north. And I would say if someone reached out to me right now, I would know how to direct them, because I love natural health anyway. I would kind of know how to all encompass it for them. But no, I haven't really done anything active probably in like 2.5 years now. It it was there for a really great time. And I felt like I was good at it, and I loved it. And I loved everything I learned about communication with people and guiding people. But no, I haven't done it formally in quite some time.
Well, and in between moving and now you've had another baby. I mean, you only had the 2 kids when you moved, right?
Yeah, well, when I met you, you let me, you were so gracious to allow me to have Ivy come with me. That was kind of a disciple thing for me, to have her along with me on appointments and socialize and meet the ladies. And then I had Wesley. And then, yes, 3 weeks after we moved down here, I got pregnant with Frederick. That was
Yeah. That's how I remember. Ivy was probably maybe 4, even
Yeah,
3.
probably.
And Wesley was not a newborn, but new, and you were still breastfeeding him, so
Yeah.
he was just a little guy. And it's so funny to see him older now, because
Yeah,
I'm sorry, what?
he's 7 now.
Oh my gosh. That's just crazy. When you don't see somebody else's kids, they remain the age that you think they should be. So
Yep.
anyway, the other person that is important in your life is your sister Angela. And speaking of during that time frame in the pandemic, she started the podcast Farmhouse Chic, and it was booming because of that time period. People needed something to do. Everybody was at home with their kids. She also is a homeschooler, as is Shaye. Isn't that Shaye's her partner?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that was kind of interesting. But when I met you, she still lived here in Illinois. I think that the idea of Door County was just that, an idea at that time.
It marinated for them for a good 20 years. It was something where they went up on a vacation and just fell in love with it and said, this just absolutely has to be a part of our future for sure. And oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Her podcast is Homemaker Chic. And yeah, they started that. I mean, without exaggeration, I think it started 3 days before it really hit, when everybody just had to suddenly become homemakers. So it's been nothing short of a blessing. I know that she's my sister and I could be all biased, but I listen to it, and it's made me a better wife. It's made me a better mother, homeschool mom, homemaker. I love it so much, because not only do they touch on the everyday activities, but they really get to the heart. And I love that so much, just that nurturing wisdom for my daily life. Because when you're a mom, it's kind of like every day's on lockdown. You're home with your kids. You got to survive.
Right. I remember, I don't know. I don't know how I discovered it, because I really don't think that I knew about it via you or your mom. I think I stumbled on it when I was driving, looking for a podcast. And even for me, not having kids at home anymore, it was inspirational. And I used to take drives just to get out of my house. I didn't really go anywhere. I would just drive to Wisconsin just to see, fields. And I would listen to their podcasts the whole time. So yeah, very inspirational. And it couldn't come at a better time for all those mommies who are home with their kids. So
we have a neighbor down the road. Her and I were text messaging one day, and she messages me, "Oh, Chelsea, I have this podcast I just think you'll love. It's called Homemaker Chic." And I go, "April, Angela Reed is actually my sister." She's like, "No way." She just freaked out. So the next time I went to her house, I was actually on the phone with Angela, and I let her have a little fangirl moment, like, "April, you want to say hi?" And she just thought that was so fun.
That's so fun. That's so fun. And you actually helped me with a podcast during that time frame, during the pandemic, because I wanted to talk about homeschooling when so many people were really stressing how they were going to manage their kids at home and working and all that kind of stuff. And you had already been kind of a seasoned homeschool mom and knew that that's the direction you were going to take, irregardless of the pandemic.
Right.
And we talked a little bit about how your setup that you have in your home with your homeschool. And this was before you moved. So you had sent me pictures of your little cute homeschool area.
In her room.
Yeah. So let's talk about your move from Illinois to Chicago. What was the motivating factor for you?
Do you want to redo that? Because you said, let's talk about your move from Illinois to Chicago.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'll wipe my nose while you do it.
Let's talk about your move from Illinois to Tennessee.
Kind of
And
just
what
why
was,
and how behind it.
yeah, what was the motivation for that?
Well, if I could just lift up this farmhouse in Harvard, Illinois and bring it here, I would. I don't know. Maybe from the outside, other people would see it, but that house was so special to me and it was so sweet. We lived on 3.5 acres on 40, and I just fell in love with where we live. We just got out of the suburbs, and I made the inside of the house as adorable as I could inside of regulations from a landlord with not changing too much. Because Derek and I are the type of people, we're going to come in and make it look better. We're not dumpy renters, you know?
Right.
So we signed a 3.5 year lease. He preferred something longer to not shuffle people in and out. He figured if it was longer, you'd care about it more. And then we came to the end of that, signed a 1-year lease because we were kind of in. And then at the end of that, he was kind of like, what are we doing? Are you guys staying? Because I'm going to want another long lease, which we weren't really excited about. We kind of had already put in our time and our trust. Can't you just now, could you let us go year to year now? Because we've given you you know who we are.
Right. Right.
And at that time, the only form of this that I had heard of in regards to people traveling with a camper was sadly some friends who had lost their home, and they just were like, well, we'll live in a camper and we'll go see some things. And I didn't know that that was a thing. So I told Derek one day, I said, we homeschool. I'm killing it with doTERRA, and we rent. So we have no ties. There's no selling of a house. There's not really too much having to quit a job. I mean, he works, but for a while, I was the breadwinner. It was such a blessing. And I said, what if we just traveled America with the kids? And he just thought that was the coolest idea. So in haste, we went and bought a camper, the wrong kind of camper. We had to end up selling it. And we kind of just dove into that head first, found this great family on YouTube. They're called Keep Your Daydream. These just wonderful people named Mark and Trish, and just fell in love with them and their travels. And that's when I learned, thinking oh my goodness, people do this. I didn't know this was a big community out there. I don't know why I wouldn't have put 2 and 2 together with that. So then I went on a retreat. Okay, what order did that come in? Okay, then I went on a retreat to Denver with doTERRA. One of the up girls was having 15 girls at a house, and I got to be one of them, which was great. Totally out of my comfort zone, leaving family and going that far. And I met a sweet gal there named Stephanie, and we kept in touch afterwards. And this was very just happenstance in a conversation. We were doing a lot of Marco Polo. Remember when Marco Polo got really big, even before COVID?
Right.
Yeah. And in my last reply to her, I said, hey, we actually are going to start thinking about traveling. So if your husband ever needs any work done, because all I knew was that he was in the landscape area. I didn't know anything about his job. I said, we all have some specialties over here. Derek would be great with that, because we wanted to just formulate it in a sense to where maybe I could do doTERRA on the road, and we could work camp at RV parks, and Derek could do odd jobs for people. I don't know. We were just we were very hodgepodge putting it together. Yeah. She said, oh, that's interesting that your husband has a lot of experience in that area, because there's a job opening where we live for the city of Johnson City in Tennessee for a landscape supervisor. And it was as soon as she said that, I knew that we were probably not going to travel, because my husband at that time had always wanted to work for a municipality just for the comfort of the insurance and the hours, 7 to 3, easy. And Tennessee. And I recall him a few times in our marriage saying, I think I wouldn't mind experiencing that state a little bit. So we came down and he interviewed, and he got it, because Derek gets every job. If you've ever met him, he's wonderful and fun. And it just kind of shifted to where we thought, well, we wanted to travel. That might be kind of dwindling out here, but it's a new part of the country to see. And it wasn't like I was sitting here let's move to Johnson City. Yes. We came down here and I was kind of thinking I don't really know what's so great about this, So it was just, I moved not being excited about it. I just did it because I knew it needed to be done with what our landlord was wanting, and kind of just trying to put together this way of seeing a new part of America. And, I didn't know at the time how hard it would be to leave family. There's times 5 years later where I still kind of cry. It's
Mhm.
just still weird to me that I can't just go to my mom's house or go to Angela's house. But now, 4.5 years later, Derek has since quit that city job. He's been running his own business for a year, and we're really settled in with a wonderful church and a church family and good friends. And I would tell anybody who's doing something like that, it takes a while. Give yourself a couple years, because, well, we moved. In the first year I was pregnant, and the second year was COVID, and the third year our new house flooded. So I kind of had these blinders on where I couldn't just get in and love it, and now
Mhm.
life has normalized. And now I like it down here.
Well, and my sister moved to Tennessee too, which threw me for a huge loop because my sister lived near me. Same thing. I was like, I go to your house once a week. What am I going to do now?
No.
And it was very sad for me that they moved, but they love it down there. They live in Loudon, which is it's on the east side, but it's no near Knoxville. I don't know how close you are
You would
to
still
that.
consider that East Tennessee. They would
Yeah,
be.
they're definitely East Tennessee.
Mhm.
When I've come to visit, I go to the Vanderbilt mansion in, I think it's North Carolina, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
in
the
North
Biltmore.
Carolina, the Biltmore, and it only takes me like maybe go up and over the mountains. It takes me about an hour and a half to get there, so
Mhm.
that's about where they live. But it's beautiful. I can see why people love it, and it's got a climate that's not crazy. Well, like sometimes it is crazy hot, but it's you still have a little bit of fall and even some winter occasionally, but it's
Yeah.
not like Chicago.
No, you're not going to experience. I mean, well, when we came down to interview, they got 9 inches of snow, and everybody was saying, "We swear this never happens."
Yeah.
It melted 2 days later, but it was quite a drive.
Mhm.
Honestly, it's not any hotter here in the summer than it is in the Midwest. When people talk about the humidity down here, it's actually kind of funny to me, because I just think you've never spent a summer in the Chicago suburbs where you can just
Yeah.
slice it with a knife. And
Yeah.
we just have it for longer than you guys do. In October, it's still very warm. When you guys are going to get snow, November, December, we get these beautiful rainstorms where the first half of the day it's sunny and gorgeous, and then you can just see it come in from the northwest. And so whenever you guys have snow, we're attached by rain, and it's beautiful. We get pretty much all 4 seasons, just a mild winter. Like 2 years ago, my son and I were sitting outside in December in t-shirts playing Battleship out in the sun.
Yeah. And your kids are thriving there. I can tell that just from social media. So let's talk a little bit about them because they were just little. Ivy was little, Wesley was little when I knew you here, and Freddie was just a twinkle in your eye at that
Mhm.
time. So how are they doing? How old are they? What are they up to?
We're doing really well. And now, come to think of it, I do recall having Freddie's car seat in your living room at your house, or Wesley's car seat rather.
Yeah.
So Ivy was a little over 4 then, because they're all about 4 years apart. I wish I would have stuck one more between each of them. Ivy just turned 11. From about May 15th till the 4th of July, we got a big span of anniversaries and birthdays. So Wesley was May 15th, he turned 7. Ivy turned 11 June 29th. Freddie will be 4 on November 8th. And they're doing great. Ivy, she does really, really well here. It took us a while to find friends and make friends. People down here, they're kind of set in their ways. So you kind of have
Mm-hmm.
to eke your way in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But we've made some really dear friends, and we're pretty locked in with our church family, which feels so good. And our homeschool days are really, really enjoyable because of the weather and just what's offered around here. There's a big homeschool community around here. We're not in a co-op or anything, but we've been connected with good families. And there's a gorgeous lake called Watauga Lake. You've probably seen me post pictures of us going.
Right, right. Mm-hmm.
So we love that. And they're doing great. They're smart, they're funny. it's amazing what children catch on to. And yeah, Freddie, we got pregnant with him right after we moved here. So he's never experienced the Midwest. He's a Tennessee kid.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you do homeschool them, and that had been something you always wanted to do. Um, how's that going? What curriculum do you use? I know Ivy's a voracious reader because I love how you post how many books she read at the end of the school year. And I, having worked for Scholastic Book Fairs, I know some of the books that were in her pile, and I'm like, holy smoke, she's reading that level already.
Well, the homeschool curriculum I decided to go with, and now I've intertwined quite a few. But foundationally, it's called Ambleside Online. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, just go check out Charlotte Mason and who she was, because the belief is that learning is atmosphere. So while we do have our time, at the homeschool table upstairs or at the kitchen table, I would just tell anyone thinking about this, it's really just life together. There's days where nothing really happens, but we're just working on our heart and souls if there's a cranky attitude or just manners are out of whack. And it's just the opportunity to do life together. And the stack of books that I show at the end of each year, Ambleside is so good about making the 36-week schedule and the assigned readings for each week for each subject. So they're not going to do a whole lot of workbooks in regards to geography. They're going to read more stories about, adventures with the pyramids and like things around the world or markers around the world. There's these fabulous books by, I think the name on the book is Howling Sea Howling, and there's a book called Paddle to the Sea, and you read it to your first grader, just one page of a chapter each week. It takes like 30 weeks to go through, even though you could finish the book in 20 minutes. And it's all
Mm-hmm.
about the Midwest and the Great Lakes and coming down from Lake Superior and how they connect to the St. Lawrence River. And so that's more of a heavy literature curriculum. And that has opened my eyes to things called living books for them, books that are going to be very, very nourishing to them, give them the best of the best of the best. So there are some books that are assigned to the children where you think, wow, this is really above their skill level or reading level. But what I've learned is that we make way too many assumptions about children, with too many
Right.
assumptions that they're not going to understand, they're not ready for this. Wesley is going to be in second grade. We're going to read Wind in the Willows and Pilgrim's Progress. And
Mm-hmm.
I've built a little bit of a foundation for him because there's a fabulous Little Pilgrim's Big Journey book that's been written, and there's a first and second part. But in regards to when we sit down and read it, or when Ivy and I did when she was in second grade, I mean, she loved Wind in the Willows. She loved Pilgrim's Progress, and she just caught on to what she could. And it just builds a really beautiful foundation for them to be challenged, which is great.
Right, right. And I've always said books are a great way to take you away and to travel to places that you might never
Mhm.
ever get to see. You can experience them in a book. So yeah, and the other thing I love about the way you homeschool is you introduce them to what I would call just common sense skills
Mhm.
that I think so many kids are really unfortunately missing out on. Um,
Yeah.
you know, the and I think that will segue into your new hobby that you have, because you've been up to something different and making the most beautiful cakes. And I think Ivy works right alongside with you in this little adventure.
Sometimes, yeah, we're working on that, but they're definitely getting a lot of exposure to it and coming up with ideas, and it's been really, really neat.
Um, how did this all start?
It started because Derek and I binge on Netflix shows at night when we get in bed.
Uh-huh.
Don't have a TV, which again just fosters more learning and life around the house.
Right.
Um, and we were watching this show where they pair an engineer and a baker and they put them together. I can't remember what the show is called. And they just come up with the neatest things, like a robot cake that has to go through an obstacle course. And then we started watching the British baking show, which I
Mm-hmm.
highly recommend. It's such a fun show. We even named our new kitties Prue and Polly for Paul.
Oh,
But
that's funny.
and I don't know, I think by like the fifth episode of this engineer baker show, I just thought, I could make a cake like that. That looks actually really fun. Or I could bake more like that. And I'm pretty, well positioned in the kitchen anyway, just because of the women in my family and how I grew up. So Wesley's birthday was coming up and I ordered a scraper, which is just a sheet of metal that has patterns on it. So you can do different things with the frosting. And I ordered a I went to Walmart and just got a plastic Wilton cake spinner. And I didn't make my own sponge. I just got the Walmart brand $1.99 box and made 4 layers. And I had then found this wonderful gal on YouTube, Georgia's Cakes. She's this adorable British gal living in Israel, and she's got a whole big following, and learned Swiss meringue buttercream from her and thought, well, okay, I'm just going to try this because I think it's really important to keep learning new things. And I love challenging myself. So I think that that kind of all encompasses the homeschool mindset and life anyways. So I made his cake. Mario had come out. They love playing my old Nintendo 64 machine, Super Mario. And I made Wesley just this little Mario cake. I can see now like where I would maybe do it differently or maybe do it again so it's a little more polished, but it turned out really well, I would say, for someone doing it for their first time. And then after that, I just thought, I actually really enjoyed that. I think I'd like to keep doing this. So I actually, just to build into Wesley, I thank him a lot. Buddy, you started my journey. You come on. So I want him to have that connection. I think that will be that encouragement to him as a little boy will be really good.
Well, and you can definitely see your progress from Freddie's cake, and it's been quick. I mean, the cakes you're putting out now are amazing. I saw the smash cake you did for a little 1-year-old's birthday party, and that kind of reminded me like of a wedding cake. It was so pretty. And I thought, well, to me, that was the prettiest one so far. But then I saw one, I think today or yesterday, that had the lollipops on it. And oh my goodness sakes, that was quite a cake. So speaking of weddings, I just did a post about our daughter Annie's backyard wedding. I'm going to start that over.
That's okay.
So speaking of weddings, I just shared a post about our daughter Annie's backyard wedding. And I want to chat a little bit about wedding cakes. Have you made any before?
I have my first wedding cake coming up for August 12th. It's all booked and ready. I'm going to do a dessert table for her with some macaroons, blueberry pies, and a wedding cake. And there's a big, beautiful crystal punch bowl to serve people.
And what is it, an elaborate cake or is it just something simple since you're doing other things?
I think it will be a 2-tier cake. It'll be a 9.5-inch, few layers on the bottom, and then probably a 3 or 4 layers of 8-inch cakes on the top. And my goal is that the bottom layer I can get to be almost a navy blue, and then I'd like to do some kind of cream ombre fade up on the top one, and just get a clump of her flowers and just stick it kind of on the side as a little focal point and keep it really simple. So I'm not too much overwhelming myself, but I am making sure the bride is very pleased and it's really, really elegant and nice.
Yeah. For Annie's wedding, we just did one of those simple little naked cakes. And I just did the same thing. I took some of her flowers and stuck it in the base. And then we bought, I think it was from Etsy, for sure it was from Etsy, a wooden sign that was just engraved like with their names on it, really cute. And it turned out really special. And I think there's ways to do a wedding cake kind of on a budget. Do you have any tips for things like that you've thought about?
Yeah, I mean, if you just boil down to the simplicity of it, any cake flavor is going to be an extract. Any puree in it could easily be just a nice jam that you get at the store. You would just maybe reduce the sugar a little bit if you're baking your own sponge. Go get the 99-cent Walmart boxes and make a few sponges. Just get the, I mean, no one's really going to know. And you can elevate it with, like I said, extracts, or if you want it to have a different texture, you could put maybe yogurt or something in it so it's a little more dense or creamy tasting. You know how on the back of a brownie box, if you want it more fudgy, you add a 3rd or 4th egg to it. So that type of thing. And I would say if you want to just have a crack at it, just go to Walmart and get a $15 Wilton spinner and if you don't have a proper scraper, I would venture a guess that everybody might have that tool that you get flour off of your counter with after you bake or something. Anything flat, really, you could scrape the sides to be a naked cake, like you said. Put your flours on there. Extracts will enhance it. Crushing up almonds, if you did an almond flavor, sprinkling them around, just standing back and saying, what are just little things I can do to just elevate this? So when people see it, they're just like, wait, you made this? And you're thinking, yeah, it was actually really simple, not as hard as I thought it would be. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I am not a baker at all. Like, I can't hardly make a box cake turn out correctly. I don't know what it is. I'm a really good cook.
Yep.
I just can't bake. And I think it's the preciseness that you need to be a baker, because with the way I cook, I don't measure. And I think you have to measure to be a baker. But you've really turned this into an art form, in my opinion, because the cakes that you have had online are just amazingly beautiful. And I can see how every single cake, like, you're challenging yourself to do, one step better than the one before, or something a little different, or make it even more creative. You're having fun with it, aren't you? I can
I am
tell.
having fun. And I like that you can see that I'm trying to step it up with my own challenges a little bit. I was a waitress for a really long time, and I would always treat my customers in the regard that, like, I would want to be treated. So if they would ask me for extra marinara, or I promise I'm going to pull this full circle, but if they would ask me for like extra marinara or extra ranch, I'm not the kind of person that's just like, here's your little ramekin, I'm going to bring you a soup cup of ranch, because I know that you just want to get in there and enjoy that. So I've always done that in regards to entertaining at my home, or thinking like, where can I fill the gap? What would just bring pleasure to someone or make them feel really good? And I think that I get to take that to the cake baking. So I did a Moana cake the other day for a friend at church. I did those waves on the bottom and the sunset on the top. A lot of the ideas, I have to give credit to Pinterest. I'm going on there looking for inspiration, and then I go this way with it. I just give myself a baseline, and then I do the rest of the execution on it. But I'm thinking, what would she love to see? She's probably going to have some things, some decorations. We could make a really cool picture out of this to help with her family pictures and me advertise it. So I'm kind of always thinking a few steps ahead as well with what the effect of it will be, and just the happiness that it will bring to somebody. So I love to incorporate that as well. And what would be pleasurable to my eye? I grew up around my mom. Parisian farm girl's my sister. I'm constantly exposed to beauty and design. So I'm kind of putting that into these cakes to bring my own self something visually very pleasurable.
And you're turning this into a little business. I've noticed you put something out there the other day where you're offering not just cakes, you're offering cupcakes and charcuterie boards and different, like, basically entertaining in a box. You can provide it all.
Well, I think that if I can give the beauty of cakes, I want to fill in gaps in other areas as well. So Ivy, when she did the lemon, did you see Ivy's birthday cake, the tea party cake
I
with the
did. It was amazing.
we did a 3-tiered cake. She wanted an Anne of Green Gables tea party theme. So we'd made it real light and pretty with teacups on it. And we made macaroons for it and stuck them in the side, and just a lot of elegance and sweetness. She wanted a lemon poppy seed cake, which she had never had. She just loves lemon. And then she wanted lemon curd in the filling with the Swiss meringue buttercream. So I said, all right, you can make the curd. So she followed a YouTube video. We learned how easy it is to make lemon curd. I know people can it, but not everybody wants to. So there might be times where I say, hey, let's just can some lemon curd. And if we have 20 jars, then I figure, why not send out a little email blast that we have some lemon curd available. Here's fun ways to use it. Here's the season that's maybe more appropriate to use it in that's coming up. And just give people just little blips of delight that could maybe pop into their day. If there's a lot of husbands and wives who are maybe just doing date nights because they have little ones, but they're staying home for it. My mom showed me these gorgeous little charcuterie boxes, and I was kind of looking at the picture thinking, I could put that together. Maybe not right now, but if I knew that there were just 5 or 6 beautiful, little staples that I could just regularly do and offer people, that might be really fun.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome thing. But I did also notice where you said that your gardens and your things were getting neglected because of this new hobby.
Yeah,
that
they're
you-
not as pretty as they were last year, but also I'm gonna throw it at the weather as well. Some people might scoff at saying it's been chilly here in East Tennessee, but I was running my heat on June 3rd, and I'm not an
Mhm.
idiot. I can hack it with some chilly weather. But we had some cold nights even coming into June. So there was a lot of stuff that was planted later than usual, mixed in with now doing this more. So I only have a couple due by the end of July, and we're going out of town here tonight, actually. So when I get back, I'd like to spend just the last 2 weeks of July just weeding and just restoring what I need to. They'll be okay. Just that they were my focal point last year, and now I can see, oh, that shifted. So for next year, I need to put them both together and figure that out.
Right. In fact, as you're saying that, I'm thinking, boy, you could add into your gardens like more herbs, more lavender, more edible flowers that you could use with your
Exactly.
baking. How fun would
Yeah,
that be?
that's a great idea.
Yeah. There's so much that's edible that I don't even think we realize
Mhm.
um that is in our garden.
Yeah, and I still have a lot to learn with those types of flowers and everything, but that's why I'm enjoying this because it's endless learning, endless creativity, and I love things like that. And I think maybe that's where gardening and cooking and homeschooling comes in. I don't want anything in a box. I want something where even in 5 years I can do it differently than I used to. And that is why I appreciate my sister's podcast so much, because homemaking is an art form, cakes are an art form, and you should get better, like they say, with art forms as you go on.
Well, I have to say, you are knocking it out of the park because I'm just so impressed from when you started, which wasn't that long ago, was it? I mean,
Months ago.
yeah, yeah. And your cakes are just amazing. They're beautiful. And I actually am going to tell my niece who lives in Tennessee as well. Next time my nephew's birthday comes, she needs to order a cake from you because they're just crazy awesome.
Oh, thank you. That would be fun. I would figure out a way to meet up with her. I think Knoxville, the farthest side of Knoxville, I think is maybe an hour and a half from us. So that we could figure that out. I would love to.
Mhm.
I just think it's so
Yeah.
fun. And then you get to be a part of their occasion in a really special way. I had a mother just order a Super Mario cake. It turned out really cute. And she was very kind, but she was just worried because the first person that she ever had do something like that personally, when her son had turned 2, she said he forgot. She went to call him that morning to pick up, and he said, "Oh, I forgot to do it." And I don't know, I don't know how that happens, but I
Oh,
kept reassuring her, like, listen, that like not a thought. And what I do so far with, I guess you could say, my clients or whatever customers, I keep them, I keep them in the loop. Like, hey, I just baked your sponges, putting them in the freezer. Hey, your buttercream's all set. I got your crumb coat done. Again, just that way of like what I would appreciate, because I love communication. So I stay in communication with them. This part's done, this part's done. Here's an updated picture. Or I ask them, would you like to be surprised? Or do you want a little fun anticipation with some steps that are being completed as I'm going? So that meant a lot to her, just to know, oh, this is actually happening. Great.
yeah, that's everybody's nightmare. Worst nightmare is having an event and having an integral part of it not
Mhm.
be there and not be ready. That's
Exactly.
crazy. So as we wrap this up, I just wanted to ask you about baking because I am not a baker. So what would you say would be a baking secret or a cutting corners thing that you do when you're making your cakes?
I think the biggest thing that I knew just a little bit about, but am now just, I swear by it, is weighing your ingredients, not so much measuring them with measuring cups. I get my scale out that measures in grams. Grams are
Mm-hmm.
also the same as milliliters. So if you ever have a liquid, it's the same thing. But I follow this awesome guy on YouTube. He's called the Preppy Kitchen. And I use his recipe for my vanilla sponge. And he was explaining that you can dip your 1 cup measuring cup into your bowl of flour. Some people will press it against the side instead of just level it off, but you're going to have close to 200 grams of flour because they've packed in where the air bubbles should be in that 1 cup instead of 120 grams, which is technically a real cup of flour. So a lot of people already knew this. I didn't, that you should just spoon your flour into the little cup and just keep it light and fluffy. And not so much teaspoons and everything, but anything else, your butter, your egg whites, your egg yolks, your flour, your sugar, weighing really just that preciseness that you mentioned. It keeps everything really precise. And that rolls over into like when I do sourdough bread and everything as well. I knew that, but it just, I don't know why it didn't click with me with the cake baking. Oh yeah, weighing ingredients is going to be the best way to go. It's going to make you have that touch where I feel like you can call yourself a baker, because things are going to keep turning out very well because it's just the same every single time.
Well, you just gave me an aha moment, because I weigh my flour to make bread and sourdough bread, but I use the cup and scrape it to make,
Yeah.
and I can't even make chocolate chip cookies turn out right. Maybe that's my problem. I need to be weighing it instead of measuring it in
Too
a
much
cup.
flour in there, the density.
Yeah.
Though that,
Yeah.
and that's what happened too, because I make decent pancakes for my family, but sometimes they just don't turn out. It's kind of just ebbs and flows. So even I had my little own aha moment, like, oh, I should do that when I make pancakes. Duh.
It makes total sense.
I
It makes
know.
total sense.
And another thing with pancakes is separate your egg whites and whip them and then put them back in. I didn't know that either. So now my pancakes with my family have gotten 10 times better because I weigh my flour and I whip the egg whites and then I add them with the egg yolks.
Well, you might make a baker out of me, because I might give it a try. I've been my whole adult life, I've been so discouraged, because when you can't even make whole house cookies turn out right, either they'd be like these hard muffins that you could throw and hurt somebody with, or they would be like lattice work, like it would just spread out and be all these holes all over the place.
Yeah,
I
it's
could
really
never.
easy. I'm sitting at my little counter here where all my baking tools are. It's really easy just to take your cup and just smear it against the side. Be like, oh, I have a cup of flour. And if
Right.
you just go on Amazon and just get a little electronic scale, you'll spend $12 to $20.
Right. My scale was next to nothing, and I use it all the time for so many things, but I never thought to use it for baking.
Mhm.
Who knew?
The little plastic bowl that came with mine has since cracked, so I just will set a bowl on it that I have and then turn it on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
default
do
to
the
that.
same thing. I whatever bowl is handy, I put it on, then turn it on. So
So there'll be
great
two.
idea.
Oh, sorry.
No, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say there'll be two ends of the spectrum. People will say, you didn't know that. And then people will have their, oh my goodness, I had no idea.
Never knew.
Yeah.
So you also are a good cook. I know that, and you like to cook.
Mhm.
And I don't remember if it was on social media or where it was, where your advice to new cooks or young moms is learn how to bake a whole chicken. Like that's like the really easy, but yet can be elegant at the same time to serve your family. Um, so on that note, what would be your favorite cookbook that you use, or do you even use a cookbook?
Well, no, I use them. They're right up there. And oh, I didn't mean to bump that. I would say I honestly use a lot of my sister's cookbook whenever I do a few things. And I have a book called The Prairie Homestead Cookbook by Jill Winger. And
Mm-hmm.
I also like Shaye's. Shaye's was really foundational for me in just starting to be a new mom and homemaker. I remember laying in my little kiddie pool in the driveway when Ivy was a newborn baby taking a nap, so excited that I had just gotten my new Elliott Homestead cookbook. And she's got great little soups and such in there. And the best roast chicken ever is really easy. Just douse it in salt when it's thawed and let it sit there for an hour and bake it really high till it's done, because it'll get golden brown and you'll make the best stock out of it. And people will think that you deep fried it. It gets so crispy. It's so easy.
I think that's like my favorite, one of my favorite, like what we call at our house Sunday, like Sunday dinner. We always make
Mhm.
something big, like a roast or something. But my favorite is to bake a whole chicken. And I love that crispy skin on the outside. It's the best.
Oh yeah.
Chelsea, one thing that I always ask everybody is what's something about you that most people don't know?
To do it. I think it'd be really funny to be a homeschool mom stand-up comedian. I just think that it would be a riot to be kind of the person that nobody really wants to hear from, just the mom that doesn't have the TV and goes to church on Sunday and, has her children do things way different than everybody else. And I've already got it all planned out in my head. I would title my show, I'm That Mom. And the word that would just be in all capital letters, like, oh, she's that person,
That mom.
And I would just yes, please laugh with me and at me. Let's do this. I just think that'd be so funny.
Well,
And
I challenge you to at least write some material.
yeah.
And maybe someday you will have the guts to stand up and do it. Have you ever seen, I don't know if you're on Instagram or not. Her name is Lisa, and she's from New Jersey. And she's just a mom. And she started putting funny content out there. And she also bakes and cooks with her mom on her. And she just does these little tiny Instagram things that are so funny. So it might be a way to start there. She's just really funny. And she does now do stand-up comedy all over the place.
Oh, funny. I've never heard of her, but you should send me some of her material.
I will. I'll put the link in the show notes along with you've given me a lot of great things that I've taken notes on that I'm going to put links in the show notes for all the listeners who are interested in some of the things we chatted about. I also want to put in the show notes where people can follow you and where they can see your beautiful cakes.
Oh, thank you. They're quite small followings right now, but I am on Facebook and Instagram as Generation Bakes. There's a little story behind that name. Again, it's Generation Bakes on Facebook and Instagram. And I just kind of wanted to give a nod to where I come from. I come from your quintessential Midwest, great grandparents immigrated over, and I come from a long line of homemakers and cooking and baking. And I really feel like maybe not so much the cake baking itself, but just the understanding and the fluidity in the kitchen. I give that to my grandma, my great grandma, my aunts, watching just all these things transpire in this area. And so much of that is related to homeschool. Like you were saying, those common sense skills, what I want to give to my children. I told my kids, you cannot move out until you can make great grandma's blueberry pie and her cinnamon rolls. I want you guys to bless your family with these things. So I named my little business, so to speak, Generation Bakes.
It's a very, very cute name. And I kind of got it right away, but I know a little bit about your family too. I know, your grandparents are from Michigan. You are definitely a Midwest girl at heart.
Yes.
Sure. But anyway, well, it was so awesome talking to you, Chelsea. And I know that you're looking for some email lists to start your little business. So I hope everybody will go over to your Instagram and your Facebook and start following you and watch your little journey and go back. I encourage everybody to go back and look at some older things and see your progression, because it is really incredible. Okay. And I really loved having you. It's been a long time since we chatted. Great to see your kids growing up and doing so well. And I'm glad you're liking Tennessee.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really grateful that you considered me and thought I would have something to share and maybe nourish some people or give them something to think about. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I saw your cakes and thought, what a fun twist. I mean, you just decided you were going to do something new and you just ran with it. And that's incredible.
Well, and if I could maybe summarize what I would want people to take home from that is I just think learning something new is really important. I'm learning a lot about when we get into our older years and what our brain goes through and such. And it's really, really nourishing and important to keep learning new things. And one thing I can observe in a lot of mothers, I think just some people in my own life and just kind of across the board, is this, I don't want to use the word boredom, but just this sense of, I don't know, what am I doing? And you have the chance in this life to challenge yourself to learn new things and take on new things. And that's where I feel the most replenished. And I think without them even realizing it, that's the space where a lot of other people would feel replenished if they would just step out and just challenge themselves to keep trying new things, or find something where it is endless learning and endless creativity, and never thinking, oh, I can't do that. I hear so many people say, oh, I'm not creative like you. I'm just not this. I'm just not that. And we're all creators in some way, shape,
Yeah,
or form. We are.
I agree. I agree. And our kids are gone in a flash. And to have something that we enjoy and we do for ourselves and nurture our souls, I think is really important.
Yeah,
So thank you so much for being on the podcast, and thank you to my listeners. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next week.
so much, Lynn.
You're very welcome, Chelsea.